Hey everybody, I'm Jason Eccles and this is Don Dino Spazzini and we are the Movie Passengers. Today we are reviewing The Five Bloods on Netflix, directed by Spike Lee. Dino,
I
did you
enjoyed
watch
it.
the movie? You liked it?
I really did. It's one of those movies that not only is it a great retrospective on, I guess, Vietnam War, but in our current time with all the protests and everything, it kind of fits in, right? I also really enjoyed the fact that all the flashbacks that he was doing, he kept the actors in their actual age. So Delroy Lindo and all the other older actors, when they would flash back into the scenes of them during the Vietnam War, they didn't change. There was
I
no,
like that too.
yeah, I think it was, especially with something that has to do with war and PTSD and everything, and they're revisiting Vietnam in the present time, them getting all those new, feelings and emotions and rushing back into what they remember, I think it fit perfectly. And it didn't seem overdone. And also the amount that they did do in flashbacks did not seem choppy
No.
or
I appreciated them actually. I appreciated most of the structure of the movie. Like I had heard from some people that they felt that the movie kind of descended into like an artsy fartsy film by the end, and I didn't get that vibe at all. I felt like yeah, it's a little artsy, but not too artsy. I felt like there was a style to it. But I will say this: I did feel like Spike Lee sort of once again didn't keep a consistent style with the movie. I did feel like it was sort of all over the place. I didn't feel like it started off, like classical filmmaking or whatever, and then descended into artsiness. I just felt like he didn't have a super clear vision on what he wanted the style to be. I could be wrong about that. Maybe I can be convinced otherwise, but that's the feeling I got from it. I liked the movie too. It's obviously a movie of its time. You know what I mean? It talks about the Vietnam War, and like you said, the protests of the Vietnam War and the protests that are happening right now. There's a strong parallel, and obviously, this movie was shot before any of this stuff happened. But it really is a good time to release that, to release this movie as a retrospect.
I can
Yes.
also totally see what people mean by that, but I don't agree with it that it
Hmm.
delved into artsy fartsy. I think the overall story and idea that Spike Lee had was great, but I
Agreed.
do feel that at times it deviated from it, or like you said, he wasn't quite sure what to stick with.
Yes.
I still think the movie is great and you should watch it. Those are just little kind of things that this is a little weird, or I thought he was trying to do this, or this style. In that sense, for me, sometimes the dialogue might have been a little clunky,
Hmm.
as in like transitioning from scene to scene. I think
Yeah.
at times maybe it wasn't the smoothest that he's been before.
I think you're referencing the historical references they do in the movie where they talk about a piece of like Black history. There was parts of that. That's really what kind of pulled me out of the movie. There's at least two times. Some of it was really good because I appreciate because I didn't know all that history. There's a few things I didn't know, but a couple times they would make these historical references to Black people, Black history, and it was so much like exposition, so much talking, it became clunky. And immediately I kept thinking like, well, how would I like redirect these actors to do this and to make it seem less clunky? And but then I remembered I talk like that.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that would drop a piece of history on people because it reminds me of something. Like I
Yeah.
have that teacher sort of, I'm like hardwired as a teacher, I think. So I do that. Maybe it was just the way it was set up. Could have been a little cleaner. Also, most people who watch these movies don't know that.
Right.
And Spike has taken that into account. So he's also educating as a filmmaker too, which, I do appreciate. But it's a little bit clunky. Maybe everybody won't even notice it, but I did.
I was speaking of a different instance, but yeah, the just almost like, and this is a PowerPoint part presentation of it,
Yeah.
but I didn't mind that. I was talking more dialogue in different areas, just felt a little either we have to take up time or
Mhm.
it just seems like we need dialogue at this
Do you
moment.
remember any of those moments?
I think it was towards the end, but yeah, I can't quite remember. Because again, the overall experience was really good.
Yeah.
And I think he gets away with it, and it works for this movie because it is flashbacks and it is going back. So I totally buy, like, let's bring up this little tidbit of knowledge, right? Because it's a way of looking back at what was going on, or like little did you know type of thing. Because like you said, I feel like whenever we talk or whatever, at a certain point, I'll go into this tangent of just like some either Paraguayan history or whatever, of just like, let me tell you about something.
Yeah, yeah.
What I do want to add to that is, again, with everything that's been going on with the protests and all that, I saw someone post about how they just found out about Juneteenth from seeing it in Blackish. And they found about these other, I think, Black Wall Street, Tulsa, from The Watchmen. And they found out about this other event that happened from Gangs of New York. And it's like, how is it that America, has to learn about history from movies and not from school, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So did I think it was a little heavy-handed in The Five Bloods? Yeah, but you know what? I think it's good that it's in your face. I think Spike Lee works best in that, he doesn't back down, and he's just like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it there,
Maybe that's a good point. Maybe the movie is very indicative of his personality
Yeah.
anyways. Because Spike seems like the kind of guy that is going to just drop a piece of history on you. You know what I mean? And the actors in the movie, they're pretty much like his age.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
So,
Boseman, I don't know. Boseman could be doing a young Spike Lee impression,
well, outside of
right?
Bozeman, obviously.
Huh?
Outside of him. But like the central,
Yeah.
characters, those guys, yeah, I think they're all around his age. So they kind of represent his voice anyways, I would
No, but I
imagine.
meant Boseman's character very much sounds like Spike Lee, like a young
Oh.
Spike Lee,
Oh yeah,
because
right.
he's the
Yeah.
one that's trying to enlighten everyone, right?
Yeah,
He's the
that's
one
true. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's giving these speeches or monologues about
Yeah.
educating everyone else in his team. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that could be like a young Spike Lee just trying to get the masses going and stuff like that.
How appropriate to have that movie right now. I mean, we need more movies that are willing to teach. And like in TV shows, like I'm glad that comes up because that's a really good point, man. Like I've heard other people say the same thing about like The Watchmen, talking about Tulsa and they didn't know about it. And I didn't know about it until like maybe 5 years ago,
Hmm.
and most people didn't learn about it until they watched the HBO show. And I'm glad HBO went there. And I'm glad Spike actually went there for the Vietnam War. There was one great factoid, and I'm going to say it, where it talked about Black people at that time in America made up 11% of the population, but they made up 37% of the active soldiers in
Yeah.
Vietnam. And that statistic, because that was a draft army,
Hmm.
that was a draft. So they purposely drafted more Black people, or alternatively, and I don't know the answer to this at all, or alternatively, more non-Black people, more white people ran away from the war. They either enrolled in college, or they had, burnt bone spurts, or they just, ran to Canada. I don't know what you do to get
Yeah.
away from the draft, but that they did that.
College, bone spurs, and
Going to
going
Canada,
overseas. Yeah. Of
it's
just how.
insane, man. It's insane. Like, if anything, that's a part of systematic genocide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 37%, almost 40%. That's 4 out of 10 of people. That's almost 40% of your military. That's insane. Like
Yeah.
that's an obvious ploy. That's not like by accident. That's by design. And so that's like crazy. I mean, I'm not surprised about anything America does, but it's good to know. And I'm thank you, Spike, for letting us know. The movie is clearly a homage in a lot of ways to Apocalypse Now. There's even the Apocalypse
It
Now.
starts with that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's even the Apocalypse Now thing in the background of
In the bar.
the nightclub. Yeah, and then at that point, like you're constantly thinking Apocalypse Now. And it's very much a homage film in a lot of ways because Apocalypse Now is about a soldier going back into the jungle to find someone, to find another
Hmm.
soldier. And this movie is about a bunch of soldiers, ex-soldiers, vets going back into the jungle again to find someone.
I watched Apocalypse Now after I watched the Five Bloods, but I think you watched the Five Bloods after Apocalypse Now, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
That's right.
And I saw Apocalypse Now, and I was like, I get it. The movie, I think, just started great. It was a
Mhm.
great start. You see automatically the difference, right? They
Yeah.
now have a McDonald's. The
Yeah.
bar has freaking Apocalypse Now in the background, and like
Yeah.
the music, like it's just this whole thing is just flipped on its head,
Mhm.
right? And then just seeing Apocalypse Now, and like you said, seeing shots that at times are mirroring the shots in Apocalypse Now.
Mhm.
The people that have seen that, or have, even if you haven't seen the whole movie Apocalypse Now, you know the most famous references or the most famous shots from that movie and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it did a really good job of really filling in the gaps in our
Mhm.
minds, or just like kind of, even if it's just like, remember Apocalypse Now? Remember how crazy that was? Remember
Yeah.
how crazy war is and how it makes you lose your mind and
Right.
how people lose their humanity? And the way that it was done was subtle. My issues, if I even have any issues, came more in like a little bit of in the third act of the
Okay.
movie. But the beginning, all the setup, everything, I thought leading into them starting their jungle journey and stuff like that, I think was
There are some
on
things in the
point.
third act that I didn't quite understand either. You know, one other thing I'm glad that Spike addressed was the guy, I forget his name. He had the daughter that was in Vietnam. He had a
Yes,
baby with that woman,
Otis.
Otis. Yeah, Otis. So he had a kid with Tien, or whatever her name was, and he didn't know. And I have heard this many times from, like, war vets, kind of like cracking sideways jokes, like, oh yeah, he probably got some babies over there in,
Yeah,
Vietnam or Korea or whatever. And that's a real thing, man. A lot of soldiers left children. I mean, isn't that what Miss Saigon is about? But that a lot of soldiers left kids over in Vietnam that they didn't even know about. You know what I mean? That's a real
hmm,
thing. There's like a whole, there's a whole group of like mixed children running around Vietnam who are like in their 40s or whatever now because of, you know.
well, it even happened in World War II, right? Isn't there a number of black soldiers that stayed back in like France
Mhm.
after World War II? Maybe, if I'm not mistaken, just as a
I
way.
don't know.
Again, the idea of you're coming back to the U.S. where you don't have the same rights, right?
Oh yeah, like soldiers who stayed behind. Yeah, I have heard about that for sure.
I will say I enjoy this Spike Lee's movie more than the one he did about World War II.
Oh, A Miracle at Santa Anne.
Yeah,
I was just talking to somebody about that last week, and I talked about how much I enjoyed that film, and then it just descended into that movie descended into the artsiness, and I was like, I was so on board with that movie, like this
yeah,
is really good, like I can't believe how good this is, and then it just like now it's very esoteric and weird, and I'm not with it anymore.
yeah. I did the same thing. I like at some point I just like took the rug from underneath me, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, this
like
is not.
yeah, what is this now?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, man. I don't know why Spike does that. I would actually like to hear some other people talk about Miracle at Santa Ana, or even Spike. I want to hear
yeah.
what his design was for that movie, and I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, this one, when I saw it all the way through, because that other one follows almost very much kind of like a Saving Private Ryan, but at the end, I just went completely bonkers, I thought. Where this one, I was like, it stayed more grounded throughout the whole thing.
I enjoyed the symbolism, the "Make America Great" hat throughout the movie, right? Because the hat almost plays like a character, even.
Yeah,
It plays this weird crown in the film. There's the one character who wears it, the Delroy Lindo character who wears the thing, and he represents that small populace of America, of Black Americans who are MAGA supporters, and it's like nobody else agrees with him, but then he states his reason for it, and I understand the fear factor of trying to the MAGA thing. I get that part. I get the psychology of it. But what I liked is that in the film, the hat very much represents American greed and corruption. Because everybody who wears that hat is corrupt while they're wearing the hat. You know what I mean? They're all doing some dirty back deed. They're all worried about money, and they're all trying to rip each other off.
3 people wear that hat.
Hmm.
I actually heard Delroy on NPR, and he talked about how he did not want to wear that hat.
I bet.
Like, and he spoke to Spike and was just kind of like, I don't like, can I just be this ultra conservative, like, I just don't, like, I do not want to wear that. And like Spike talked to him and he was like, no, you got to understand. And he kind of came to like, okay, just use it. I think it's needed because we gotta try and have empathy, right, and understand. And you think about, like, why would a Black person support Trump? Why would a Latino support Trump, right? Why would a woman support Trump, right?
Yeah.
We can just automatically, if someone has that hat, completely shut them out,
Right.
right? What can I do to understand why that other person feels that that is
Hmm.
the correct choice? And I think that's why it was very important for Delroy Lindo's character Paul to wear the hat, right?
Right.
It's like he, it's let it burn, right? It's like, I've never gotten what I expected to get. Like, there's so many different reasons why people can end up supporting someone like that or supporting those ideas. And it's something that, especially with, again, everything going on right now, we have to be able to recognize the people that have that going on, that are wearing those types of hats, or, and if it's
Hmm.
even on the other side, if it's completely leftist, we need to have more empathy towards each other and just try and understand the person in those shoes, right?
Yes. Yes. At least make an attempt to understand. Understanding may lead you down a dark place. Like, oh,
Right.
I didn't even want to know that about you. You know what I mean? Like, here's a question for you. This is something that it confused me in the movie, and I don't have the answer. I think I might know, but the landmine sweepers, they were they trying to double cross them? Is that why they showed up where they were?
I don't think so. I thought that was going to be the case,
Hmm.
but I think they were just doing their actual
They were
job.
just there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But okay, so when they were being followed in the jungle and they show that they let the audience know that they're being watched,
Yeah.
who are those people? Are those the same guys that ambushed them at the end?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, because I thought maybe that was because I couldn't really see them too well. I thought like, oh, clearly that's the landmine people.
No, because you can actually see them with a gun.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the same thing, but from the shot you can see that
Yes, that's
they
true.
have the AK-47 and stuff. And I thought, because you kind of imagine there's going to be a lot of double crossing and
Hmm.
paranoia, and so I thought maybe the French people were, since, what's the French actor, Renault?
Oh,
Uh,
Jean Reno.
yeah,
Yeah.
since he was in it and he's a Frenchman, I was like, oh, clearly a French landmine group is not gonna,
Yeah.
but no, I think they just happen to be there as a way to push the story, right?
Yes.
And give some extra depth.
You know, I feel like I like the movie even more now that we're talking about it and breaking it down. I was a little bit troubled by it by the end of it, but talking to somebody about it is like, okay. But this is one of those movies that I feel like audiences, you need to watch this movie and you shouldn't just watch it like by yourself and just let it go. You really need to have a dialogue with another human after watching this movie. Like it's really important. Or watch reviews.
Yeah.
Watch us talk about it, but there needs to be an open dialogue because this is a movie. There's a lot of moral dilemmas in it,
Yeah.
and it's a morality tale, and it's a tale about social justice. And you have to be, and it's a tale about America and a tale
It's
about Vietnam.
and it's really well acted.
Very well acted.
Like,
Agreed.
the just one reason to watch it is just the characters are really strong.
I
You
feel
know,
like Delroy Lindo. Almost feel like he can get a nomination for this.
I've been hearing a lot of people say that. I mean, even Boseman maybe for supporting, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, it's just, yeah, that whole relationship of the two of them,
Yeah.
how that goes throughout the movie is, I mean, and the movie is heartbreaking. And like
Yeah.
you said, it can be very jarring because as much again, and as we're talking and seeing that there were instances where they were just putting up pictures of characters, who they were or what happened to them. At the end, I think that just makes it so much more real
Yeah.
and so much more this is still going on or
Hmm.
this is still affecting people. Like this is part of the society that we're still in, that it's you haven't forgotten, you
And
know.
unfortunately, it's a part of our heritage. It's a forced part of our heritage that nobody wanted.
And just thinking again of the fact that they had Spike Lee had the older actors playing themselves as younger actors, but
Hmm.
without any CGI. And
Yeah.
then The Irishman, that was on Netflix, did the opposite. But The Irishman, when they would introduce characters, they also had like a little quick caption on when they were arrested or when they died and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's two different ways of dealing with putting out information for the audience, right?
It's interesting. You're right, because they could have went the route. I mean, it would have been more expensive to go the route of aging the characters or whatever, but it felt more like a play.
Yeah.
It felt more like a play by not de-aging the characters with CGI and all that kind of stuff. Like, and there's in the dialogue and the way it's set up. I kept thinking like this is a piece of theater right now. Like all of it could be written as a play, the whole thing. Like there's no scene that you can that would be so like extravagant where you couldn't make it into a piece of theater.
It could be a play. You could just keep it with soldiers. Like it can be one location play if if you look at it that way.
All right, so I guess that's the movie. Is there
Yeah,
anything else that you want to talk about it?
I would recommend it. I
I
just
would
really
highly
like.
recommend it.
Yeah,
Agreed. Yeah. So great performances all the way around. I liked everybody in the movie, and I would highly recommend it.
and as movie passengers, we're starting back up. So I'm Dino,
I'm Jason.
and we're the movie passengers.
See you guys soon. Don't forget to like this video so that other people can find it. Leave a comment for us if there's any other movies that you want to see, or give us your take on the Five Bloods,
Mhm.
and like and subscribe.